Hello, and welcome to Around the Political World with John Rothman. I am your host, John Rothman. If you're a fan of the show, make sure to hit the follow button on the top right of Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you are listening at this very moment. When you hit follow, leave a review or share an episode with a friend. It helps other people discover the show, keeps us going, and as I like to remind you each and every day, it expands our base. 1,000 days and counting. That's how long the war between Russia and Ukraine has been in progress. And now, ladies and gentlemen, a critical moment. President Biden authorized the use of long-range missiles by Ukraine against Russia. And in fact, it appears that is exactly what has happened. And now, the Russians are responding. They have revised their nuclear program, saying that if a non-nuclear power, that's Ukraine, were to use long-range missiles provided by a nuclear power, then their nuclear doctrine needs to be revised. What does that mean? Does it mean we are closer to a nuclear conflagration than we have been since the Cuban Missile Crisis? Does it mean that the United States is now directly involved in the war against Russia? This morning, I picked up my copy of Hiroshima, the brilliant book by John Hersey. And this is what he wrote. A noiseless flash. At exactly 15 minutes past 8 on the morning of August 6, 1945, Japanese time, at the moment when the atomic bomb flashed above Hiroshima. That's right. Do you remember? I remember when I was in school. We were all required to read Hiroshima to remind us of what a nuclear war might mean. Now, let's be clear. We are not talking about the destruction of the world. It is now established fact that you can fight a limited nuclear war. Now, that still is hard to wrap my head around. A limited nuclear war. So the question becomes, what happens if someone tries to use a nuclear weapon? And I mean Russia. I think it is a scary proposition. And if you think we are scared in the United States of America, imagine how Latvia, Estonia, Lithuania, Poland, and Western Europe are reacting to this change in the Russian doctrine on the use of nuclear weapons. It's time for the world to step back, take a deep breath, and really talk about this. President Trump has said that he will immediately begin the process of de-escalating the war with Ukraine. Now, we have a problem. It is a serious problem. The United States and the West, the NATO powers, are committed to Ukraine's independence and freedom. We are on record as opposing Russian aggression. And yet, Russia continues to move forward with stepped-up activity, including the use of 10 to 15,000 North Korean troops. This is an escalating situation, and the world had better get a handle around what is happening. I believe that it is time for there to be an international discussion about what to do about Ukraine. The Ukrainian people have suffered devastatingly in the last 1,000 days. Russia itself has felt the implications. And yet, Vladimir Putin remains committed to the proposition that he and his country are entitled to control much of Ukraine, if not all of Ukraine. This is a serious problem. It may be the most serious problem that President Trump will have to deal with when he takes office. But let's understand, we are now in a vague period. Joe Biden retains power until January 20th at 12 noon. He will make the vital decisions. We know that the briefings of President Trump by American intelligence have begun. This is a tradition which goes way back in terms of transitions. And so Kennedy most assuredly received briefings from the Eisenhower administration and all the way forward. So what do we do now? As we think, as we contemplate the idea of even a limited nuclear war, and remember the lesson of Hiroshima, you can use a low-grade nuclear weapon and the world is not destroyed. But as these days proceed, and as the transition from Biden to Trump begins the process of evolving, we had better understand that a lot is at stake. Our NATO partners want to know that the United States stands firmly with NATO. Ukraine wants to know that the United States and the West stand firmly with them. Putin wants a situation where the West and the United States will back down. And Donald Trump is talking about some sort of compromise. Well, Mr. President, if you have a compromise, let's put it on the table. Let's make sure that before some precipitous action is taken, that we have explored every option to prevent it from happening. The ultimate horror would be a nuclear attack. And we in the West understand that. It's not only the devastation that would be wrought, it is the question of how use of a nuclear weapon might affect our climate, might affect our world. So my recommendation is we stop, pause, take a deep breath, that we consider carefully what could happen. A nightmare scenario is the last thing that we want. When, on August 6th, 1945, a nuclear age was opened, well, we had hoped that never again would a bomb be used. May I suggest that if nuclear scientists and their doomsday clock are ticking, it is closer to doomsday than we could ever have imagined. Thanks for tuning into another episode of Around the Political World with John Rothman. Make sure to follow along and let me know your thoughts on the show by leaving a review on Apple Podcasts and sharing an episode with a friend or colleague so we can continue to grow and expand. Of course, you can interact with me on LinkedIn and on Facebook, and I invite what you have to say because, my friends, we are all affected. Deep appreciation to Gogo Zoger, the wonderful producer of this podcast, who makes sure that Around the Political World with John Rothman is up and running. See you tomorrow.